$250,000. That's how much a homeowners association demanded from a black man in fines, threats of foreclosure, legal action, and harassment included. They claimed he had violations on his property: overgrown grass, unapproved fences, tiny landscaping mistakes. They sent letters, inspectors, and lawyers. They expected fear, compliance, and silence. But what they didn't know was that he owned the land under their feet. Every house, every street, every inch of the neighborhood wasn't theirs at all. And when he revealed the truth, the tables turned in a way no one could have predicted. How do you fight an injustice when the system itself seems stacked against you? Marcus Thompson was no stranger to hard work. Born and raised in a small town, he built his wealth quietly, investing smartly in real estate over decades. By the time he purchased his property in the suburbs, Marcus wasn't just a homeowner, he was an owner of opportunity. His land had historical significance, traced back to his family for generations. Yet when he moved in, he didn't flaunt wealth. He kept to himself, maintaining his property with care and respected neighbors' spaces. Everything changed when the Homeowners Association arrived. A group of self-appointed enforcers, armed with bylaws and certificates, accused Marcus of violations. Overgrown grass, fence height, paint color. They scrutinized every detail, claiming he owed thousands in fines. Then the letters escalated, the threats intensified, and suddenly they demanded $250,000. To them, Marcus was just another black man, a target they thought they could intimidate. They never expected resistance. They didn't see the man who had quietly amassed enough wealth to buy the entire block, the streets, the lots, the homes themselves, and Marcus, who had lived with patience and humility, realized the lesson his family had taught him long ago. When injustice knocks, you don't cower, you strategize. But would the HOA recognize their mistake before it was too late? Or would they learn the hard way? The HOA sent letters, inspectors, and certified threats. They tried to impose fines, hire lawyers, and intimidate Marcus into compliance. They assumed fear would force him to pay. But Marcus had done his homework. He pulled out old deeds, survey maps, and property records that no one had noticed in decades. One by one, he traced every plot of land, every home, and discovered something astonishing. The HOA's entire neighborhood sat atop his property. Every home they claimed to regulate was technically on land he legally owned. Now the challenge wasn't just to pay fines, it was to expose the truth without escalating unnecessary conflict. Marcus began meticulously documenting everything: property lines, historical records, previous purchases, and correspondence with the city. He started small, sending letters and emails to the HOA, calmly explaining the situation. Their reactions ranged from disbelief to anger. They mocked him at meetings, called him a troublemaker, and assumed he couldn't legally enforce ownership. But Marcus remained patient. Every move he made was calculated. He spoke to city officials, legal experts, and historians to solidify his claim. The fines they had imposed suddenly looked laughably ridiculous: $250,000 for violations on land that was never theirs to regulate. Neighbors began noticing the tension. HOA meetings became heated, cameras captured confrontations, and the community watched a quiet man quietly turning the power dynamic upside down. Then came the final, decisive step. Marcus, fully armed with documents and undeniable proof, called an HOA meeting. The board, smug and unprepared, expected an apology or nervous payment. What they got was a revelation that shook every foundation of the neighborhood. Would they accept the truth, or fight until the law forced them to yield? The board met in a packed hall. Members leaned back in their chairs, smug expressions painted on their faces. Marcus stepped forward, laying out maps, deeds, and historical documentation on the table. One by one, he showed how every lot, street, and corner legally belonged to him. He explained that the fines they had imposed, $250,000, were invalid, illegal, and unenforceable. Their bylaws had no jurisdiction over his property. The crowd gasped. The board members stammered. They tried to argue, claiming ignorance or technicalities, but Marcus had anticipated every excuse. Every document they cited had already been invalidated by historical records and legal precedents. When the last piece of evidence was revealed, the deed showing his ownership of the common areas and even the roads themselves, the room fell silent. Cameras clicked. Neighbors whispered. The power dynamic had flipped completely. In that moment, Marcus didn't gloat. He calmly told them that they could continue to live in the neighborhood, but all enforcement powers, fines, and threats were null. Every house, every lot they believed they governed was his to protect or allow or even reclaim. The board, once arrogant and dismissive, was humbled. They realized the magnitude of the man they had underestimated. Marcus had turned the tables not with violence, not with anger, but with knowledge, patience, and meticulous preparation. After the confrontation, the HOA board dissolved their authority. Legal enforcement of fines was dropped, and Marcus offered clarity and guidance to the community, ensuring no one was unfairly penalized. News outlets picked up the story, framing it as a tale of poetic justice. A black man, harassed and threatened, had quietly and strategically claimed the power that was rightfully his all along. Social media erupted with praise, criticism, and disbelief. Marcus became a symbol of how patience, research, and courage can overturn systemic intimidation. He showed that being underestimated, ignored because of skin color or perceived status, can be transformed into an unshakable advantage. Neighbors who once feared him now respected him. The fines were gone. The threats vanished. And the lessons endured. Power isn't always about who controls resources outwardly. It's about who controls knowledge, strategy, and composure. The moral was clear. Systems built on intimidation and prejudice can only succeed against the unaware. Marcus had turned their arrogance into their undoing, reminding the world that vigilance, patience, and intelligence are more powerful than fear. So ask yourself, when systems try to crush you, will you cower? Or quietly prepare until you hold all the cards?